Good morning, Crosstown. Pastor John with this morning's daily devotional thought. We're going to be in Mark chapter 14, looking at verses 32 through 42. We're going to be talking about Jesus' prayer in Gethsemane, and we're going to look at what it shows us about how we handle those times in our lives when the burdens of everything going around just seem too heavy, or the fear of what's to come in our life is so crippling that it just prevents us from moving. Okay, so we see that in verse 32. We see where Jesus tells Peter, James, and John to sit while he goes and prays. And then he follows it up and he says, I am deeply grieved to the point of death. Jesus knew all of the events that were coming down the pipeline, all the suffering he was going to endure, and eventually the death on the cross that he would suffer for us. And it deeply grieved him to the point where he felt like he could just die. But it's in this moment that we see Jesus show us exactly what we are to do in these times and in these moments. And we see in verse 36, Jesus begins his prayer. He goes to pray and he says, Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Take this cup away from me. Nevertheless, not what I will, but what you will. So the things that Jesus teaches us in this prayer, this very simple prayer that he prays to God the Father, is that first and foremost, we are to take all of our burdens that are getting too heavy. We are to take all of our fears that are beginning to cripple us, and we are to take them to the Father. But it goes further than that, because I think a lot of times we'd say, yeah, we got to pray about it. And then Jesus shows us that he trusts him. He says, God, nothing is impossible for you to do. And I think we can believe that God can do anything. But here's the hard part that I think is really hard for us sometimes, is the third thing that is in there. And when Jesus says, not what I will, but what you will. And I know we've all been in moments, and you might be in a moment or a situation right now where your burdens are so heavy, or the fear of what's to come is so crippling that you can't move forward. Because it's easy, we can go, we know we need to pray to God. And God is there. And the way Jesus talks, and when he says Abba, Father, is like a son saying daddy. That's the type of access and relationship we have to God. And we need to know that in all things are possible. We are to trust God with our burdens and with our fears. But I think the third part is really hard. And that is to ultimately know that God knows what's best for us, what's best for everyone, even when the things in our life are really hard, even when those burdens become so heavy and that fear is crippling, that ultimately trusting that God knows best when we're suffering or we know we're going to suffer. But that's what Jesus sets the example for, because that's the ultimate trust and freedom that we have through prayer. Is it's an opportunity for us to take our burdens to God, know that everything is possible, but lay it at his feet and trust him that regardless of how hard things get or how much suffering is involved, the God of the universe knows what's best for us. So I want you to take that to heart, church, when the next time something comes up, or you might be in a situation right now where those burdens are heavy and those fears are crippling. Go to God in prayer. Trust that he can handle it, and just give it to him. And know that he knows best, regardless of how much suffering or turmoil that you're in or that you're going to go through. Have a good one, church.